Tandai, thanks very much for talking with me.
Why are you laughing?
It's been a long time that I wanted to talk with you because in my coverage of politics, I've always seen you as one of the young, bright minds in the PNC, but I gather you're no longer with them. So I wanted to talk to you mainly about that. But first, if you can tell me how you got involved in politics.
Very loaded question, a very loaded introduction, but thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. It's been a long time since we've had a conversation of any sort, and It's good to see you. How did I come to be involved in politics?
First, you could tell me about your family because your uncle, James McAllister, he was in Parliament for the PNC for a couple of years. I don't remember exactly how many years.
So Neither do I.
So you have that heritage in politics.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, prior to 2020, I think in the lead up to the 2020 elections, a lot of family members used to refer to me as the last remaining McAllister in the PNC. And we used to have a good laugh about that. I don't think there's any McAllister left there. But funny enough, my coming to politics really had nothing to do with the family. I grew up in a little village named Iflut on the west coast of Damara. I'm a country girl, and I recall it must have been around 95, 96 that the GYSM, the Ghan Youth Institute Movement, they were doing countrywide outreaches, and they came to Iflut. Prior to that, about 2 weeks before that, the then leader, the late Desmond Hoyt, visited the community, and he spoke about the involvement of youth in politics and, sort of encouraged the young people then and their parents to have them involved in the movement. He shared his vision for young people and his vision for Guyana, and it piqued my interest. And so when the GYSM, as he had promised, did the canvassing in Iflut, the very day a group was formed, and I was appointed the treasurer for the group then. And so the interest grew. My involvement in politics at the group level expanded to the regional level, and I became the assistant secretary treasurer. Back then that was a post, I don't know if it still is now, of the youth arm in the region, working with the likes of Mark Walks and Bryn Moore Brown and Morris Anderson, who is now deceased, and a whole host of young people, young, vibrant, brilliant young people, Celicia Burnett and the Youngs from Farm. And so it was really, for me, quite a beautiful experience, being involved in community work, political work at the community level, political advocacy for youth, and being able to share then my vision for young people. Just being this tiny little girl from Iflut with big eyes, bold eyes, with a big voice.
What is it about politics that you suppose got you interested?
For me, it was the camaraderie and the opportunities to be among people, to help with processes that aimed at improving the lives of people. We got back then engaged and involved in a lot of activities, sporting activities, social work activities, really activities that were designed to build individuals, to keep the minds of youth engaged positively, and to build communities. So it went beyond politics for most of us, most of the time. And I recall, during my membership of the GYSM, that's where I met Bevan Curry, who became my best bud and brother up until his passing, tragically. I miss him. And Peter Livingstone and Kirk Saul, and the group, Neil, we were always hanging out. But, I recall being in the GYSM and understanding that as a member of the GYSM, I had a responsibility to not only contribute to the organization, but to the party, and by extension, the country. And I remember Comrade Hoyt at a meeting of the GYSM Region 3 admonishing that we learn the difference, and in fact live the difference between, what did he say, political activism and nationalism. I recall him saying, you can be political opponents, but not enemies. And so that is how we operated. And the GYSM at that time had a very good relationship with the PYO. Believe it or not. Majid, who sadly we lost as well to COVID. Majid was, at one time I used to call him Majid of the GYSM because, you know, while the parliamentarians from both sides were doing their business in the house, we were outside at in the lower house, you know the lower house, Neil, and we were having our own discourse.
Right.
And we were critical of all of the parliamentarians. It didn't matter on which side of the house they sat, because this was a core of young people. I recall, and I was perhaps the youngest in that group, I recall a core of people who had the national interest at hand. Yes, there was loyalty to party, but I did not see at that time a blind loyalty that would prevent you from wanting national development, from contributing to national development, even if your party was in opposition.
But while in the GYSM, you obviously wanted more, and until, I don't know if rise is the correct word, in the party, you wanted to be involved more in the party.
Of course. If you would speak to people in my community who've known me long enough, they would tell you that it was always my dream to be president of this cooperative republic. And so I saw the GYSM and the PNC as the vehicle to that. And so it would be foolish of me to enter into politics, to get involved as much as I did, and I will not sit here and be disingenuous and say, oh, I had no interest in elevating to higher office in the party or in the country. No, I will not say that, because for me, I have always lived a life of service. I embody it. My vision is to see Guyana as a first world nation, not only in terms of infrastructural development or physical development, but in its human resource. And for us achieving that capacity that would place us at the pinnacle. And of course, we all want to see a united Guyana. But more so, I would love to see a Guyana where we live respectfully, respectful of each other's culture and our differences. Our differences must be what make us our people. And I thought at the time, and perhaps I still do think, if I should return to politics, that it is something that I still think I want to contribute to building that Guyana that I want to see.
So you rose in and you became an executive member of the party. What was that like?
First, let me take you back a little.
Sure.
So before becoming an executive member of the party, I served at the regional level. I served as regional vice chair, Region 3, and then regional chair. And then before being elected to the CEC, I was elected as the regional rep to the CEC for Region 3. And so it was an opportunity for me to represent the interests of the party in the region at the highest level of the party. It was quite an experience. I think that I got a lot of support.
You served under whom? Who was the leader at the time? Because
David Granger. Did I serve under Robert Corbyn? It seems so
I'm trying to
distant
get the years
now.
in my head.
So my
Yeah.
I served, but I've been so divorced from it that it is just a memory.
Right. So let's talk about 2015.
Why not talk about 2011?
Yeah.
That's when I think the change really started. Because in 2011, after the 2011 election, we got that minority government. Right.
Was that exciting? Were you
it was exciting. I recall that in the run-up to elections, Deborah Bakker, God bless her soul, she was the regional campaign manager, and I served under her as deputy campaign manager in the region. And I remember that being an exhilarating campaign. We had very little resources, but you know Debbie, she had the gift of persuasion, and I think I learned a lot from her during those 3 months of campaigning, interacting with the people. It was my first real high-level campaign. I mean, I've campaigned before, but not from that perspective. So I got to, at that time, for the first time, experience leadership in the campaign structure. And to provide that leadership in the campaign structure. And there was lots of support, because the way in which she built the campaign organization, you never felt as if you were doing it alone. And then she said, I remember she said to me one time, she said, listen, you're from this region. You know this region. Everywhere I go, people are talking about Tandai. So,
work it.
Yes. I was responsible for mobilization. Said that every meeting, if the meeting doesn't get anybody, Comrade McAllister, I'm looking for you.
Right.
And I remember the ultimate meeting in the region, there's a mini rally, it was held at the tarmac at the Ridden Stelling. And it was scheduled for a 6 o'clock start. And I remember her at about 5 o'clock. We set up and we were busy trying to finalize things. And she said, Comrade McAllister. I said, yes, Comrade Bakker. Where are the people? And I looked around. There's nobody. I said, they're coming. He said, okay. Half an hour later, Comrade McAllister, yes, Comrade Bakker. Where are the people? I said, Comrade Bakker, if I tell you the people are coming, they are coming. Neil, let me tell you something. At 6 o'clock, the people came. and she, after the meeting, she said, well, girl, you know your story, yeah? I said, man, I know my people.
So, because you were so excited about that, because at that time, I think people could feel that somehow, PPP was going to lose ground.
Yes, at that time, there was hope. There was hope. And there was a hope provided by the leadership at that time. Well, there were people in the leadership structure who ensured that they not only commanded the work, but they did the work alongside you.
But part of your work, Tandai, when David Granger was selected as the presidential candidate, as a leader of the party, not everybody liked him. I remember we were outside of Congress Place, and I think Clarissa Real was one of those who said that Granger was aloof. He didn't come from the people. This isn't somebody that, grassroots people would support. So you had work to do.
Yes, we had work to do, and recognizing that at that time, I had amassed some political currency, and there was some trust. There's still trust that exists between me and our supporters, and so we had to sell the candidate. We have to sell the candidate first to the support base, to the party, to the membership, and it was thought at that time that if we're able to do this successfully, then the party, the Goliath that is the party, the structure, will do the rest. And so we did go, a group of us, young people, led by a certain young lady. We did go in some communities, house to house. We met with the groups, those who will have us to answer questions. Some of the questions we didn't know the answer to, but we said, listen, there is hope. And it is because of that hope that we can get into government, that we will exercise some faith.
And you did get into government in 2015?
Yes, the party did get into government, yes.
I spoke to a lot of the young people in the PNC, young people like yourself. I didn't talk to you then, but a lot of the young people were disappointed at that time that their work or their value in the party wasn't recognized with any sort of positions, for want of a better word, in the government at the time. Did you feel the same way?
Yes and no, and I'll tell you why. In 2015, I finished up law school, and so at the time of the elections, I was at law school. I came home for the swearing in, and then I went back. But at all times, of course, I stayed in contact with my comrades. Coming back home, let me just take some steps back. If there's one thing I've learned being involved in politics and in the PNC, oftentimes what is popular is not sustained.
What do you mean? Give me an example.
And so Neil might have been working pretty hard. He has been investing his time and energies into ensuring that the party remains relevant and that it remains viable as a viable option to the people. But oftentimes too, the work of Neil might not be recognized as perhaps indicative of Neil's readiness to be elevated. And so the decision to appoint persons to whatever office often lies with the leadership, sometimes the leader. And a lot of the young people too, at least for me, and most of the young people that I have come to know and build relationships with in the party, were not of the kind who would go to persuade that, hey, I should be appointed here, or I should be appointed to an office where I can better serve, or perhaps be more resourceful in service. No, they would not do that. We would just wait for the appointment.
And it never came.
Yes, for some people, it never did come. And there were some young people whom I thought ought to have been afforded some recognition for all of the work that they would have done over the years. Bevan Curry, for instance. And it grieved me that Bevan Curry was not acknowledged as a person who could contribute to the formulation of policies and programs to aid national development. Because you would know as much as I do, Bevan Curry was one of those persons in the GYSM, in the party, that did just that. Contributed to policies and programs to keep the party alive, so to speak, to ensure that whenever there were fan-out exercises and awareness drives, he would be at the helm of the vehicle, oftentimes in the driving seat, if not in the driving seat. He is there in the engine room, ensuring that the vehicle is properly propelled. And so it was disappointing that some of these young or not so young people, persons who would have contributed a lot of their life and energies to building the party, to ensuring the party's viability were not selected.
Did you protest?
I think quietly, some people protested, probably had closed door meetings and so on.
Did you?
But no, no.
Why?
I loved the PNC at that time. I still believed at that time that the PNC was a party that had the nation's best interests at heart, and that the plans and policies, the ideologies which attracted me to the party in the first instance were still alive, and that I needed to defend that. And even though, yes, in closed doors and so on, people would air their grievances, to protest publicly, no. And I believe that. It doesn't matter which institution I'm a part of. I will not name and shame. I will not publicly do that. Yes, we're going to have it out privately, but to go public, no. This is probably my first very public conversation about this.
Did things get worse?
In the sense that the young people did not feel a part of the decision-making process. In the sense that the young people felt like props that you would use for a particular purpose, and once that purpose was satisfied and you had achieved what you had achieved, you cast the props aside. So yes, it did get worse in that sense.
Why do you think that happened? Who was responsible for that?
I don't think that I can, name individuals. I think it is the structure, the system, responsible for that. Maybe a line of thinking that the youth, they're not yet ready. It is not their time. There's no better time for the youth than now.
To you, what kind of a leader did you see David Granger to be? Like, what kind of a leader was he?
I recall one time, I really cannot describe him as a type of leader. I can't describe the type, but I can say this. I remember one time admonishing that it is time we start kissing babies.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Go to the grassroots. Go to the people. Walk the markets. And literally sometimes kiss a baby.
He wasn't doing that?
No.
And you thought that was needed?
Yes, because there was for those of us who were still on the ground and engaged with the people,
didn't see him.
There was a disconnect. There was a disconnect. And while, it may be argued that it is responsibility of the regional managers or the regional MP or the minister responsible for this region or that region, at the end of the day, the people want to see the president. They want to see the leader. Because they want to know that he still remembers them. Even if he doesn't. They still want to feel, to experience his presence. The leader came to us. I recall Comrade Hoyt visiting the community of Iflot, and it was a big deal. But did you shake Comrade Hugh Desmond Hoyt's hand? No, I got to shake his hand. And not only that, I got to give the vote of thanks. That was a big deal. You can't talk to Tandai after that, no. This little girl is giving a vote of thanks and so on, and welcoming the comrade leader.
That wasn't the kind of leader Granger was.
No.
And the people wanted that kind of leader.
There was a difference between the kind of leader Granger was, and a leader like Hoyt, even Robert Corbyn, who's very, very grassroots and down to earth. Yeah.
But you still campaigned for him in 2020.
Did I campaign for him or did I campaign for the party?
He would become president if the coalition had won again.
Yes. As disenchanted or hurt as some people were, we still felt as though there was a chance.
There was hope.
Of change. There was hope. There was hope. And so we still encouraged people to come out and vote, to support the party, to support the leader at the time to be president again. It was a difficult journey. It was, in some communities, very difficult to persuade people. But eventually, I think, for Region 3, I believe, if I recall correctly, we increased our votes by 25%. So, a small victory, notwithstanding the loss. Yeah.
So what caused you to step away? Because that's the conversation we're having.
Yes,
You have stepped away.
I stepped away.
Why?
I stepped away realizing, Neil, that the PNC to which I was attracted, there was no longer an alignment. I could not see myself being of meaningful contribution anymore to national development. I did not believe anymore that the PNC in its state could adequately represent the interests of the people.
What state do you refer to?
Disorganization, too many factions. There is some degree of mistrust and a lot of hope lost. A lot of people were hurt.
Hurt by what? I want to ask you about that, and also, why did the factions come about? Like, what drove that?
Personal preferences, maybe. Everybody believes it, and there's nothing wrong with thinking that you can be the leader and that you're right at this time to be the leader. And so, I'm no longer going to support Neil or Tandai. I'm going to form my own cluster, and it's too many clusters.
And perhaps that came about because obviously they weren't satisfied with the leader that existed.
I think there was a breakdown in the leadership. Yeah.
So going back to hurt, what were you most hurt about, you would say, that caused you to step away?
When I stepped away, it wasn't because of hurt.
What was it?
I stepped away because at that time I had already healed. And so I was strong enough to step away. Stepping away was a process. I recall that on the 3rd of March, 2020, when I finally got home, my mother said to me, she said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I am okay, but I am done." Yeah. Said, "I am okay, but I am done." And she said, "You're done? To be done is to be dead." I said, "Well, some things are now dead to me." So, and I think she understood in that moment exactly what I meant. So, she would from time to time ask me about my involvement in politics and whether or not, because I was always going somewhere. "Oh, but you're not going here?" I said, "No, I am giving myself some time and space, I need to reinvent myself." And so she said, "Oh, you're done?" I said, "Yes, I am done."
So you're done with the PNC?
I am done with the PNC.
Are you going to... I see you... The reason I'm asking this, because I see you around the place sometimes at PPP events. Are you leaning towards supporting the PPP?
I support Irfan Ali.
Why?
I like him.
Why?
He's a country boy. I believe that he has genuine interest in the development of Guyana. I think he loves Guyana. He loves the people. He understands the challenges he himself coming from humble beginnings. And he identifies with a lot of the challenges that we have. And he works in earnest to build the people. I have had one-on-one with him on several occasions. I'm not talking from our travel on the Georgetown to Reno ferry when we were at high school. No, and so I am confident that as president, he will do an excellent job. Of course, every decision he makes will not, be well received by everyone. But I think that his decisions are informed decisions. His intentions are real, genuine, and good. And so I support him. And as long as he maintains that, he will have my support.
You know how this works, right? You saying that, people will say,
Oh, she's a PPP?
She's drinking soup, you're
They
PPP.
said that already. From the time I walked away from the PNC and I said, I've had enough of politics and let me go concentrate on building Tandai, her career, and, go back to something that I've been doing all the years. Not really go back, spend more time on community development and youth development. People have been saying that, she's drinking soup, she's drinking from the cup, she's a PPP. I do not spend the time convincing people otherwise. People will believe what they perceive, and that is okay with me.
So
I'm not here to change perceptions. I support Irfan Ali. I love him as president. I think he's a very good president. And as long as he, stays this course, I don't see him not getting a second term.
So we'll see where you go next, or what you do next when it comes to politics.
Yes, I think I still have a few more rounds left in me. But I'm not going to say, I'm going to return to the political front line tomorrow or next year or in another 2 years. No. But I do think that I have a few more rounds left in Tandai. She's not so old.
Thank you very much.